Good afternoon. I'd like to call the meeting to order and acknowledge that we are in Treaty 1 territory, the home and traditional lands of the Anishinaabe, Ojibwe, Innu, Cree, and Dakota peoples, and in the national homeland of the Red River Métis. Our drinking water comes from Shoal Lake 40 First Nation in Treaty 3 territory. My name is Cynthia Stevens, and I'll be chairing the hearing this afternoon. Joining me this afternoon from the Board of Revision on Zoom is Mr. Neil Harden, and in the hearing room, Mr. Richard Whitbread. Our assessor this afternoon is Mr. Ryan Valderrama, and our secretary is Belhen Robo. We will be hearing applications for the revision of the assessment roll in accordance with the Municipal Assessment Act. The matters for which revision is requested have been described in each application, and we will limit discussion to those matters. The statements that are made at this hearing are sworn testimony, and anyone speaking to the matters must be sworn in. Be advised that comparisons of assessments of properties are not considered evidence of market value by the Board of Revision. The Board of Revision is appointed annually by Council and is independent of it and the City Administration. It makes its decisions on the basis of the evidence provided at this hearing and issues a written order that will be mailed to all parties as soon as possible. Please note that the Board's decisions with respect to an application may be appealed to the Manitoba Municipal Board if the matter pertains to assessed value or classification, or to the Court of King's Bench if the matter pertains to the application of exemptions from taxation. Should you wish to appeal, information on how to do so will be included with the Board's order. With respect to the hearing process, I will confirm the points of appeal with your property to be addressed with each applicant following the swearing in. We will then have assessor's testimony followed by questions that the applicant may have, then the applicant's testimony followed by questions. Each side will have an opportunity to summarize if they wish. Once all of the evidence about an application has been brought forward, the applicant may leave. The process will repeat for each item on the docket. The session will close after all applications have been heard, and the Board will deliberate in private and make its decisions. You will receive the Board's decisions by registered mail as soon as possible. As information, all public hearings are live streamed, recorded, and will be part of the public record. We will be hearing items 1 through 7 on our docket today. Ms. Rojo, please swear in the assessor and the applicant.
Mr. Assessor, please state your full name.
Ryan Valderrama.
And you affirm the evidence about to present is the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
I do.
Thank you. Mr. Applicant, please state your full name.
Trevor Smith.
And you affirm the evidence about to present is the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
I do.
Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, just before we get started, I maybe just confirm with both of you gentlemen that all of the items on the docket today, it appears that we are dealing with assessed value only. Is that correct?
That's correct.
Okay,
yes.
Thank you. So I won't ask that before we start every item. So the first item on the agenda this afternoon is 475 Lindenwood Drive East. Mr. Valderrama, please proceed when you're ready.
Thank you, Madam Chair. The first property has a file number of 22-2230. It has a roll number 10006359700. It is located at 475 Lindenwood Drive East. We're dealing with the roll year of 2023, using reference date of April 1st, 2021. The assessed value is $18,339,000. The classification for the property is an institutional property with the liability of taxable school exempt. The property is a residential apartment with 3 buildings, 2 to 4 stories, and actual and effective years built of 2002 to 2005. It has 135 suites with 76 outdoor parking. It has a land area of 185,232 square feet, a planned area of 45,934 square feet, and a gross floor area of 135,736 square feet. On page 3, I have a couple of photos of the subject property. Then on page 4, I have the income valuation summary. Again, the property has 135 units with an average monthly rent per unit of $1,079.46. The gross potential rent for the property is $1,748,725. It has a vacancy rate of 4.2%. Dollars, that is $73,446. It has an effective gross income of $1,675,000 $1,179. It has an expense ratio of 46.36%. In terms of dollars, that is 776,659. That would lead to a net operating income of $898,620. Applying a capitalization rate of 4.9%, the capitalized income is $18,339,184, or $18,339,000 rounded. On page 5 are some rent comparables. There are 4. The first located at 240 Stradbrook Avenue has an average monthly rent per unit of $1,179. The second one is 800 Dover Court Drive. It has an average monthly rent per unit of $1,496. The third one is located at 50 Bison Drive. It has an average monthly rent per unit of $1,436. And the last one is located at 1793 Pembina Highway. It has an average monthly rent per unit of $1,110. On next page is the map of the subject property and the comparable rents. And on page 7, I have the capitalization rates. And I would just read through 7, and it will apply to the rest of the properties for the sake of time. The direct capitalization method is used to convert a property's single year of income into an indication of value by dividing the estimated net operating income by an appropriate capitalization. Capitalization rates can be derived from properties that have sold by dividing each property's net operating income by its sale price. For the 2023 general assessment using reference date of April 1st, 2021, capitalization rates were derived from model-generated estimates of net operating income and sale prices that were time-adjusted to April 1st, 2021. The assessed values produced by the application of these model-generated capitalization rates were compared to sale prices, and price ratios were calculated. The resulting ratio statistics for assessment and taxation departments' income-producing models satisfy the standards specified and set forth in the Standard on Ratio Studies, approved in April 2013 and published by the International Association of Assessing Officers. Assessment and taxation departments' capitalization rates are further supported by comparison with real estate markets from Colliers, International Canada, CBRE National Research, and Cushman and Wakefield. The following chart compares ATD's with the published rates by fitting ATD's rates into the property type categories used in these reports. ATD's property type classes are more comprehensive so that they cover every property type in the city. The 20th and 80th percentiles show the range of capitalization rates used by ATD for 60% of the parcels within the specific property type. In many cases, the published rates fall within the 20th and 80th percentiles, indicating the tenability of the capitalization rates derived by ATD. If we move down in the chart, we can see a multifamily section. They are all in the range between 4.8 to 5.6%. And the next 2 columns are from Colliers. As of first quarter of 2021, it is between 5 to 6%. The CBRE has varying ranges depending on the property. And so goes with Cushman and Wakefield. And on the next page, I do have the capitalization rate evidence view. Again, this will be applied to the rest of the properties. And for the sake of saving time, I will just read through this and it will apply to the rest of the properties that we will be discussing today. The following is a sample of actual sales that took place during the reference period. The purpose for showing these individual capitalization rates is to illustrate the accuracy of the model and substantiate the model-derived capitalization rates. They are not meant to be comparable specific to the subject property. Net operating income has been developed through stabilizing owner reported and expense information. Capitalization rates have been derived by dividing the property's net operating income by its sale price. The first one is located at 2390 McPhillips. It was sold on October 9th, 2020. It was sold for $19,400,000. It has 90 suites and a year built of 2015. It has a sale price per suite of about $215,556 with a cap rate of 4.79%. The second one is located at 700 St. Mary's. It was sold on April 7, 2020. Sold for $1,035,000. It has 9 suites with a year built and effective year age of 1961. The sale price per suite is $115,000 and the cap rate calculated is 3.6%. The third one is located at 203 Bertrand. It was sold on June 14, 2019 for $925,000. It has 9 suites and an effective age and year built of 1963. It has a sale price per suite of $98,438 and a cap rate of 5.74%. The next, 4.77. I read the wrong line, sorry. It was the sale price per suite is $102,778 and the cap rate is 4.77% for 203 Bertrand. The next one is located at 555 Corridon. It was sold on November 26, 2018. It was sold for about $1,575,000. It has 16 suites with year built of 1955 and effective age of 1955 as well. The sale price per suite is $98,438 and the cap rate is 5.74. The next one is located at 677 Maryland. It was sold on December 15, 2020. It was sold for $2.4 million. It has 32 suites, effective year or a year built, an actual year built of 1913, and effective year built of 1972. It has a sale price per suite of $75,000 and a cap rate of 5.5%. And the last one is located at 32 Arden. It was sold on March 1st, 2019. It was sold for $2,875,000. It has 23 suites. It has an actual year built of 1969 and an effective year built of 1984. The sale price per suite is $125,000 and the calculated cap rate is 5.05%. On pages 9 to just go down, pages 9 to 12, that is where the income and expense mailer for the subject property. And that's my presentation, Madam Chair.
Thank you very much. Mr. Smith, any questions for Mr. Valderrama?
Yes, I do. And as Mr. Valderrama said, many of my questions will carry forward for the remaining 3 properties that we cover in addition to this one. So I'll just try and get through the majority of them on the first one here so that we can all save some time.
Okay, thank you.
Just general question, given the workload at the city, I imagine you haven't had the opportunity to inspect any of the 4 Lindenwood properties that we're dealing with today?
No, I wasn't able to.
Okay. The subject property is an assisted living facility, not a standard market apartment. Is that correct?
That is correct.
Okay, thanks. And for the subject property, looking at page number 4. So the actual unit count of 135 is correct, but the the number of 1 beds and 2 beds is off. The number of 1 beds is 92 1-bedrooms, and the number of 2 beds is 43. I guess that's more of a comment. We had pointed this out in the past to the city, but I see that it hasn't changed. Not blaming you for that by any means, just trying to clarify the situation. I think that's been included on income and expense mailers as well. Just jumping back quickly to page number 1. So there's 135 suites and we have 76 outdoor stalls. So that's roughly 1 stall per every 2 units. Is that accurate?
Yes, that's correct.
Okay.
Given the math.
And would that be in a normal market apartment situation? That would be unusual, would it not? In that generally there's a minimum of 1 stall per unit. As a norm.
Not sure of the minimum.
Okay. And jumping ahead, so we're not far off in our incomes, so I won't belabor this point, but there is a reason for asking the questions, Madam Chair. So just bear with me briefly here. So, looking at page number 5 and the rental rate comparables. So comparable number 1. Pardon me, 240 Stradbrook Avenue. These are the 2 towers located at the corner of Stradbrook and Donald, I believe.
It's closer to downtown, yes, based on the map that I have on page 6.
Okay, great. So these would have indoor parking, balconies, in-suite storage. There's a pool, sauna, gym for that one. The second, so pretty nice accommodation. Second one, 800 Dover Court. This is managed by Ackman Management. So this would be a luxury apartment in the same area as the subject. When I had a look at it, they identify the property as being luxury apartment rental, stainless appliances and sink, quartz countertops, in-suite laundry and storage, balconies, luxury bathroom with shower separate from tub and tiling, 2 full bathrooms. I'll ask a question, I guess. Would that be similar to the subject property?
As I mentioned, without looking at the subject property, and without inspecting the comparable rents, I wouldn't be able to comment on that further. However, if just looking more into the bedroom unit mix.
Fair enough. I certainly understand. So we'll just quickly cover the others here. The third one, this is Bison Point, 50 Bison Drive. Represented this owner. This is new built apartment, 2016 and 2020. Again, luxury apartment, ensuite laundry, ensuite bathroom, balconies, luxury flooring, walk-in closets, microwave, dishwasher. That would also be significantly superior to the subject. I realize that's not a question. Perhaps I'll move on from there if I could. just to capitalization rate. So flipping to page number 7, I'll wait for everybody to get there. So as you had noted in the text here, the second paragraph, and I'll just read it briefly here as well. For the 2023 general assessment, capitalization rates were derived from model-generated estimates of net operating income and sale prices that were time adjusted to April 1, 2021. So in reading this, and that then is fed into the model, is my understanding in reading that sentence. So essentially what I'm getting from that is that the actual income and expense from the property and the actual sale price of a property were not used in generating, deriving the cap rates. Rather, they were model estimates of NOI and adjusted, time adjusted sale prices. So that is the information that's used in the modeling. Is that correct?
Based on that statement, or based on that paragraph, yes, it is correct.
Okay. So in other words, the model is not based on capitalization rates that are taken directly from actual sale prices as of the sale date and actual NOI as of the sale date. They're estimates and time adjustments. Just looking further down the page on page number 7 to the multifamily section of the chart there. So when I look through the chart here, and we're looking at low-rise building here, whether it be a low-rise A or low-rise B, I'm seeing Colliers indicate 5 to 6% for capitalization rates, CBRE indicating 5.25% to 6%, depending on whether it's A or B, and then Cushman Wakefield indicating a range of 5 to 5.75%. So the low end being 5.25%, essentially, 5 to 5.25%, and yet I see that the city's capitalization rates that are being applied to these properties are significantly below that. Just wondering how that capitalization rate gets determined and applied.
As mentioned on the last paragraph, 0.8 to 5.6 is the 60% of the parcels within specific property types. So meaning we could have more samples here compared to the external sources. And that's why we have a wider range.
Okay, so you're indicating that the 4 properties that we'll deal with here today will all fall outside of that 20th to 80th percentile then, I guess.
It may or may not.
Okay. I think those are all of my questions. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Mr. Whitbread, do you have any questions for Mr. Valderrama?
Well, just following on the cap rate discussion, when I look at if I understand you correctly, Ryan, the model drove these values, but do you have the ability to look at the factors affecting this property, and you can make an adjustment if you choose to? Did you make any adjustments to come up to this 4.90% rate?
As far as I'm concerned, I did not. I used the model-derived cap rate on this one.
I'll ask you, did you make any adjustments to any of the properties we're going to look at today, so I don't have to ask every time?
No, I did not.
Thank you very much. No further questions.
Thank you.
Okay, Mr. Harden, any questions?
Okay, so this is basically a seniors residence. Is it one that offers kind of the full service with the meals and the larger recreational spaces and that sort of thing?
That's a fair question. I'm just looking at the income and expense information. If we can derive something from it, I just see a sales and services being charged as other income or being written as other income. And also in terms of expenses, there's food service in the others that were specified in there. So in terms of the definition of full service, I'm not sure if this is really a full service, but there are some other services that are in there written in the income and expense information starting on page 9.
Okay, so then the valuation as an apartment block is just kind of a proxy evaluation. It's not intended to function as a regular apartment block would. Is that correct?
The model derived this as looked at this mostly on as an apartment.
Okay, but that's, if I understand correctly, it's a proxy exercise to try and separate the business from the real estate part of the operation. Is that correct?
In terms of the model derived value, sir, is that the question?
Yes.
Well, I would say this how the market would value this in terms of our in terms of the income valuation workup. That's how the market would see it.
Okay. All right. Thank you. Those are my questions.
Thank you.
Thank
sir.
you. But mine is in a similar vein, a little more specific. And I'm not sure if you know the answer, and perhaps I need to ask Mr. Smith this after his presentation. But do you know if there are kitchens in these suites, and if so, what kind of kitchens? Like what size, what amenities they have?
Without looking or inspecting I cannot ascertain 100% if there are ensuite kitchen or any other ensuite features of the property. So I cannot answer that question.
Okay, thank you. I will ask it again after Mr. Smith is presented. So, Mr. Smith, please proceed with your presentation.
Thank you, Madam Chair. So our first property that we're dealing with here today, of the 4 that we'll be touching on in Lindenwoods, is 475 Lindenwood Drive East. This is known as Lindenwood Manor, and it is an assisted living facility for seniors, obviously. So as Mr. Harden had mentioned, our exercise in determining a fair market value for the subject property for assessment purposes is to look strictly at the real estate. And in order to do that, we need to remove any of the either income or expense components of the subject property that are specific to services, etc., for assisted living, the business component, in other words. Strip those aspects of the income and expense out and look at the property as strictly the real estate in determining our fair market value. So that is the exercise that we're going through. Just to clarify that, I guess, if you'd care to flip forward to, I think, A2 of my addenda. We'll only do this once. Pardon me. I'll give everybody a moment to get there. So if you look at the rent that is indicated for each of the units, it's in the $2,000 and $3,000 per month range for the property. Now, obviously, that's not a rental rate that is indicative of just renting the real estate, and it's not. The assisted living facility provides meals for the residents. They provide some level of medical oversight. They also provide services such as a bus to take people shopping. They provide on-site recreation and other opportunities as well. So there's a significant number of services that are provided to the residents that are not typical, obviously, of a standard market apartment. So the rents that they pay are irrelevant. They're not specific to the real estate itself. So just wanted to identify that up front. And obviously, the income that is generated from that is also overstating the fact as far as the real estate value of the property. So we're not basing our value on the revenue component of the property, as it would significantly overstate the value. So that is the basis of the valuation. We can move forward into the property here. My page number 3 provides you with a little bit of background with regard to the subject. The 2023 assessment is $18,339,000. This is a jump from the 2020 assessment, which was reduced at the Board of Revision to $16,914,000. That decision is under appeal at the municipal board by ourselves as the appellants, and we await scheduling of that in order to arrive at a fair market value for that property, as well as the others that we're presenting today. Properties owned by Winnipeg Mennonite Seniors Care Inc. It is a nonprofit entity providing assisted living retirement residence apartments to seniors in Southwest Winnipeg. There, obviously, property was built in 2002, so it's going on 20 years old now at this point in time. And as discussed before, we have a total of 135 units, 92 of them being 1 bedrooms and 43 of them being 2 bedrooms. We can jump forward briefly here and look at the photos. I will note there's a significant amount of space that is not typical for your standard market apartments, which we'll discuss in the building improvements, but there's a few photos of this as well. 2 exteriors on page 4. We have a shot of the dining hall. At the top of page 5, there's an administration office, as shown at the bottom of page 5, the kitchen area for the dining hall. The top of page 6, standard hallway, bottom of page 6, and then we get into the units themselves. And I believe, Madam Chair, you discussed the kitchens themselves. So for this facility, as well as the other one that we're dealing with, that's assisted living, we're simply looking at kitchenettes. They don't have ranges. They have, 3/4 size fridges for the most part, as well as a microwave. Being an assisted living facility, they provide the meals for the residents, so they're not expected to cook in their units, nor encouraged to cook, given potential issues with that. So the actual kitchen area is quite small and obviously doesn't have all the components for storage that one would have in a typical market apartment kitchen. That should be kept in mind when determining what a fair rent would be, and obviously what a fair market value would be for the properties as well. Then we have pictures of the bedroom as well as the bathroom at the bottom of page 7, somewhat senior specific for some of the components of the bathroom. And a couple of other photos of the interior here. Now, if you look at the finishes, it is of its vintage, which is 2002. It's certainly adequate. It's not a luxury apartment by any means, and it doesn't have the finishes associated with those. So comparing it directly to modern luxury apartments is not. It's not directly going to translate for the subject. The other thing I would note is that the properties are quite small, as the intent is to provide as many seniors as possible with this accommodation. So the units are on the small side intentionally, and they're smaller than typical market apartments. Let's flip forward to my page 9 and discussion of the building. We'll run through this quickly again. 92 one-beds, 43 two-beds. There's a description of the actual construction. Beyond that, I discussed additional areas. For the subject, we're looking at a reception and lobby area on the main floor. We have an office and administration area that's larger than just that single office I showed. We have obviously the main dining room for the residents. There's also a smaller private dining room, a multi-purpose room. The kitchen, obviously, for the dining area. There is a lounge, a hairstylist room, a small guest room, very small, and mechanical room on the main floor. That not being unusual. So significant amount of space that is not typical for a standard market apartment. If you look at the bottom of my page 9, we have a breakout of the actual unit types themselves and the area that each of them has. It'll become clear why we include the area for them as we go on. So again, we're looking at kitchenettes in each of these units, shared laundry facilities on each floor, so not ensuite. And each of the units have a refrigerator and microwave, very few of them having an actual range. So that is the units that we're looking at. They are undersized, they lack a full-size kitchen, and they are of their vintage. So in addition, yes, I think we've described all of the additional areas adequately. There's some additional lounge areas, I believe, on each floor as well. So again, significant area in addition to the units themselves, which when we look at comparisons of size with the city's chart, it kind of overstates the size of the units because of all of this additional area. The site is shown on page number 10, and the location shown on my page number 11, located in that Linden Woods area here. So let's move forward from there. Subject property is an assisted living center. As I'd mentioned before, there's a brief breakdown of the 4 main categories of seniors rental housing, and a very brief description of independent living. Assisted living provides a little bit of additional services beyond independent living. You can read that if you wish. So let's move forward to the valuation here. So we have undersized units that do not have full-size kitchens, etc., that are relatively recently built, being built in 2002, but not strictly brand new either. So how do we derive a fair market value for those? What we have done in the past, and aside from the last cycle, was accepted at the board, is look at new apartment buildings and look at the rents that they achieve on a per square foot basis, and make our comparisons to the subject property in that way due to the relative recentness of construction of the property. Although, again, it is going on 20 years old here. So let's look at my page number 13 and 14, where we look at a comparison to newer market apartments. So if you look at my chart, we have the subject property listed at the top. You can see their unit sizes and that it's built in 2002. And we have our comps. So comparable number one, 300 Assiniboine Avenue. So this is a tower built originally in 2016 in the downtown area on Assiniboine Ave. It is a luxury apartment. Ensuite laundry, balconies, gym, lounge, grand lobby. Built out of the kitchens and bathrooms are luxury, obviously. So high-end apartments. Unit sizes are obviously bigger, and they are achieving rents for one beds of $1.54 to $1.60 per square foot. Two beds, $1.43 to $1.95 per square foot. So this is a superior property achieving that rental rate range. We look at comparable number two, 800 Dover Court. I believe this was included in the city's evidence. Again, smaller units. The city, or rather the subject units, are generally smaller than these. And this was built in 2014. Has underground parking, ensuite laundry, balconies, gym. Again, generally superior to the subject. $1.84 to $1.89 for one beds, $1.69 to $1.71 for the two beds. Another brand new apartment built in 2020. La Maison, 153 Aubert. Rooftop terrace, ensuite laundry, balconies, quartz countertops, covered parking. Again, luxury apartments, bigger than the subject in terms of the unit sizes, and they're getting $1.58 to $1.64 per square foot for one beds, $1.71 to $1.76 for two beds. Following that, we have Bison Point. Again, I think the city also used this. I'm not going to go through each and every one here. This was built in 2012, 2013. Again, luxury apartment, underground parking. You can see that they're bigger and they get $1.86 to $1.91 for one beds, $1.76 for two beds. That's located just off of Pembina Highway on Bison Drive. Flipping to page 14, Vista 429, 429 Beaver Hill. This is located in the Southdale area, so good location. 2019 build, balconies, lounge, gym, quartz countertops, stainless steel appliances. I didn't note everything down here. Again, described by them as luxury apartments. And we have $1.68 per square foot for one beds, $1.83 for two beds. Following that, Kildonan Heights, built in 2020, so brand new, larger unit sizes, balconies, ensuite laundry, lounge, dog run, playground, better furnishings as well. And we have $1.46 to $1.73, $1.57 to $1.59 for two beds. So taking all of these into account, when we look at per square foot, it actually equals out for both the one beds and two beds on average to $1.70 per square foot. These properties are not, they're not the highest of high-end apartments in terms of the rent per square foot that they're achieving. And there's a reason for that in using these ones, in that they are slightly more comparable to the subject property than those that are driving dramatically higher rents than we typically see in the marketplace, despite having some additional vacancy as well. Anyway, So that is the market as we see it. We've presented the best evidence that we can in terms of recently built market apartments and what their per square foot rent is on a unit basis. That being said, the subject property is built in 2002, and the furnishings are older, and they don't have modern kitchens. And the bathrooms, again, are somewhat specific to the needs of elderly citizens. So what would be a fair rental rate? Well, when we look at $1.70 per square foot as being the average for the comps that we presented here, the subject would not rent for those same rates for the reasons stated. It would be inferior to that. So we have deducted 5% from this for size, age, and the build out of the units themselves. So we're using a rate of $1.61 per square foot per month for both 1 and 2 bedroom units. If you look at the chart below that, we have broken out the unit types by bedroom type as well as size of the unit, applied the $1.61 per square foot to the number of units to generate our annual revenue, which is then converted to an average rent in the far right-hand column. So the total annual revenue comes to $1,730,686. This is based on the information provided, and you can see that the rents range for 1 beds in that $905, or rather $897 to $942, and the 2 beds are in that $1,300 plus range. So certainly, if anything, generous rents, potentially somewhat higher than what they might achieve on the market as a standard market apartment without full kitchens, etc., and given the size that they are. To this, in our evaluation, we've added the annual parking revenue as shown on page number 15. We also give you the CMHC stats on general market apartments for what it's worth, and that gives you an indication of what the 1 and 2 bedroom averages are for the Fort Garry area. So certainly the 2 beds are in line, and the 1 beds would be somewhat slightly under average, which would be appropriate for the subject property. We can now move forward to the expense side. Let's look at vacancy on page number 16. I give you the Winnipeg rental market vacancy stats. We are in agreement with the city at 4.2%. They are there for you to review if you wish. Certainly Fort Garry, 5.8% for 1 beds, 3.4% for 2 beds. 4.2% is a fair reflection of vacancy for the property as a standard market apartment. We move on to the expenses themselves. So this is always a tricky, important, and not tricky, but detailed aspect of the valuation for these properties, in that we need to strip out any additional expenses that are strictly based on the services provided to these assisted living residents. So that is the exercise that we've done. If you can see, all of our categories here are your standard expense items for normal market apartments. We can run through those. You can see how our 3-year stabilization was done. We have the information from 2018 through 2020, stabilized for 2021. Where appropriate, we've used 3-year averages. And where needed, we've applied the actuals, such as for property tax. I will point out repair and maintenance, as this always comes up. If you look at 2018 and 2019 for the subject, $267,000 and $334,000 being spent on repair and maintenance. we've assigned a rate of $1,500 per suite as a general average for market apartments, R&M. This gives us $202,500, which is somewhat in line with the 2020 expense allowance and well under what they actually spent on 2018 and 2019. Now, there are additional areas of the property that lead to additional expenses, but we've kept the level at $1,500 per unit. The only addition that we've made here, and this wasn't accounted for in any of their expenses, is payroll for on-site staff, such as your janitor, obviously caretaker, grounds workers, etc. So we're not looking at an amount that is being applied beyond the norm. We have a total of 135 units here on a very large facility. Based on our knowledge of market metrics and discussions with property managers, we've applied a payroll of $80,000 to the subject property as a normalized staffing level. This gives us our expense allowance of $829,283. So when you run through each of those items, you can see that there is no additional expenses that are included in there that should be removed. So this brings us down to capitalization rate, this being one of the more critical components of valuation for both the subject property and general for all valuations. So I'll spend a little bit of time on this and just cover it once. If we look at page number 18, we've already discussed that there's a business component to independent and assisted living centers. So we don't need to run through that again. We've discounted the rents or stricken the rents that they pay, rather, for reasons described. If you look at the second paragraph of my page number 18, we have additional insight into cap rates for seniors housing. Article entitled Canadian Property Valuation, which is the Appraisal Institute of Canada's magazine. They have an article entitled Valuation of Seniors Housing. The graph that was included in that article is included on this page, and it compares market cap rates for standard market apartments to seniors housing and then personal care properties. So there's three lines there: apartment high-rise A, seniors housing A, and then care properties A. So the reason for providing this is not that these are the cap rates that should be applied. It's a historical document, and we're not specifically dealing with Winnipeg and or assisted living facilities, etc. What I'm showing you is the spread on a national basis between standard market apartments and seniors housing of various levels. Now, our exercise is to look at the property as close as possible to a standard market apartment, but with the appropriate influences in selecting the cap rate. So as you can see, there's a significant gulf between standard market high-rise A apartments, so the peak of the market segment, and seniors housing cap rates. So that is one thing to reflect on in reviewing the cap rates that we present. I'd also note bottom of page 18, and again, this is slightly dated, but it's theoretical anyway, so it's it should be taken into account. CBRE had a seniors housing and healthcare Canadian cap rate survey from 2015, posing the question to the most active market participants: what cap rate would you use to value a Class A independent and assisted living community in the centers described on page 19. So Vancouver, Toronto, Calgary, Montreal, provided it was stabilized and a clean deal. So pretty clear instructions, superior markets by a significant amount to Winnipeg. And the cap rates that they described there are shown. Minimums of 6%, 6.5%, highs of 7.25% to 7.5%. Now, this would take into account the business component, but again, we're looking at superior locations to the city of Winnipeg, so their cap rates would be lower than what you would find in Winnipeg. So that's a bit of background. Just running forward quickly here, our exercise is to value the real estate for assessment purposes. How do we do that appropriately? Well, we look at standard market apartment capitalization rates, and then we make the appropriate adjustments based on the subject property and the risk factors present. So that's what we do on page number 19. I've given you 15 different market capitalization rate, market transactions here with their actual capitalization rates. These are all purchased for their stabilized income and expense. They weren't purchased for renovation, so there's no overpaying for these properties in the first place to drive down the cap rate. They were bought for the existing NOI. So let's have a quick gander at my chart on page number 19. Bear with me and I'll point out the highlights here, I guess. Obviously, they vary in age, location, size, but our sale dates are all between 2018 and 2020, and it gives you kind of the broad spectrum of the marketplace for investors in multifamily real estate in Winnipeg. So I will point out, I guess, at the very beginning, 3 properties that are the most recent in terms of construction that have transacted. So let's look at that. By comparable number 3, 2390 McPhillips, constructed in 2015. This is the Lady Joyce apartment, luxury apartment located on McPhillips. 90 units, so relatively large, built again in 2015, sold in 2020 at a cap rate of 5%. Now, I think if you jump back to the city's information, you can see that they're indicating a cap rate of 4.79% for the same transaction. 703 St. Anne's. This is Royalwood Flats. It is located in St. Patel, obviously, on St. Anne's, backing onto the Seine River. Luxury apartments, built in 2020, sold in 2021, cap rate of 5.3%. So we're looking at quartz countertops, luxury kitchens all around, stainless steel, luxury bathrooms, rain shower, stainless appliance, covered parking, balconies, and it again backs onto the Seine and the trail system there. So 5.3% for that. And the last one that I would point out would be 100 Southview, that being the Lumen luxury townhomes. Built in 2015, sold in 2021, and cap rate of 4.95% or 5% if you round it up. Now, these are 2 and 3 bedroom units located in Waverly West in the South Point area. Luxury accommodation. You're essentially getting your own home here. They have individual garages, your own driveway, balcony, patio, porch, ensuite laundry, high-end kitchens and bathrooms. You're getting a home here, and it states that the units themselves are relatively spacious. So these are the cream of the crop. And we're looking at a low end of 5% essentially in the city. So that is essentially your baseline for capitalization rates that we see in the marketplace. Beyond that, let's look at the rest of our chart here. Obviously, they vary somewhat. Our first two transacting in 2020, two side-by-side apartments, trading at 5.25% in the Transcona area, relatively large, and certainly an astute investor ultimately successful in buying that. We have, well, I'll leave it to you to ask questions on the remainder of them if you wish. Obviously, they vary in size, age, build out, and cap rate. But if we summarize them, so 5% being the low end of our range, we have a sale in East Elmwood, number 9, 510 Gray, 2020 sale, 7.9%. That would be the high end of the range. Certainly not typical, but not unusual either. So the majority of our caps fall in that range between 5.25% and roughly 5.75% is the kind of the standard range that we're seeing. So that's the market speaking. To that, we also add the backup for information of the two of the main market participants, commercial brokerages, national and international brokerages, with their cap rate reports for Winnipeg. For multifamily, what we've given you is a 3-year history of their capitalization rates for the city of Winnipeg. And if we look at page number 20, the Colliers International, again, we're looking at low-rise apartments here. So looking at 2016, with 2016, we're looking at a range of 5.25% to 6%. 2020, we're looking at 5 to 6%, and 2021, or rather 2018, 5 to 6%. 2020, also 5 to 6%. Moving on, C. Richard Ellis. We have the same information, slightly more broken down. 2016, they're indicating low-rise A, 5.5 to 6%, B, 5.75 to 6. Same thing for 2018. And if you flip to 2020, it adjusts slightly to 5.25 to 5.75. Low-rise B being 5.5 to 6%. So this information is very closely mirroring what we show you as with regard to our market evidence on page number 19 of actual transactions. I would again point out my questioning with regard to the model cap rates that are applied. If you review the city's information, as already stated, the model is not based on cap rates that are taken from the actual property-derived NOI. It's based on estimates of income and expense to derive an NOI, and then a time-adjusted sale price. So really, it bears no relation to the actual transaction that took place or the motivations, etc., involved in those purchases. So I would not put a lot of weight on the model capitalization rate that's being derived when all of the sources are essentially pointing to the same market range that is somewhat higher than that presented by the city. So what would be an appropriate cap rate for the subject property and properties such as this? So we have undersized units that have a lack of a full kitchen, which would require significant investment. we have senior-specific build-outs in bathrooms, etc., that's not appropriate or desired necessarily by the vast majority of the market. And the units themselves are somewhat dated back to that date of construction of 2002. So beyond that, you have the issues of if you were to take the subject property and take an identical market property minus minus the drawbacks that we're discussing, located immediately adjacent to it, any astute investor would apply a premium to the capitalization rate that they would be willing to apply to the NOI on their investment, based on the risk that they would run in acquiring a seniors assisted living center and attempting to convert that to a market apartment. There's significant costs, and they would account for those in their purchase price, because you don't make that up following purchase. It has to be bought right in the first place. So it's a theoretical exercise, as it's not going to happen, but that is what we're left with. The range that we're looking at in the marketplace, again, is 5 to 6%, very well supported. A minimum cap rate of 6% should be applied to this type of property, and that is what we've used for the subject. So if you look at my page number 23, you can see the summary of our valuation. So rental income based on market detail, including the parking, standard vacancy, using the true expenses of the property, which have been stabilized, and applying the cap rate gives us our market value of $13,956,000. So you're going to look at that in comparison to the city's value of $18,339,000 and say, well, that's a significant gap. How can that be right? Well, I've run through each of the components here, and I will say we're being conservative in everything that we're applying here. If anything, I would say the income is being overstated by comparing it to much more recently built properties, despite slightly discounting them. I would estimate that it might be somewhat lower than that on the income side, but taking into account the other components, I am satisfied with the market value that we've produced being a conservative estimate of what it would actually achieve on the marketplace. So we're not underestimating by any means in our value. Our value is then compared to the 2023 assessment. You can see the city's using 4.9% cap rate, and we also compare that to their 2020 assessment of the same property, which, as you can see, they seem to have realized was overstated as well at the initial value. So our final market value comes to $13,956,000. The income and expense information includes the addenda includes the I&E submitted to the city. That is my presentation, and I'm happy to answer any questions.
Thank you, Mr. Valderrama. Any questions for Mr. Smith?
Yes, I do have, Madam Chair. Thank you. On page 19, there are some market-derived capitalization rate or market-derived sales. You mentioned which one is this? 2390 McPhillips. So is it accurate to say in terms of per unit, the sale price would be around $215,555 on this one?
I'm sure you've done your math correctly. I didn't break it out into that.
I used the calculator. Yeah. Okay. And do you again the one you mentioned 703 St. Anne's? I did the math. I don't know if you would agree or disagree, but would you say that the sale price per suite on this one is about $271,323?
Again, I would
Okay.
trust in your math skills there, Mr. Valderrama. What I would point out is that we're
Okay.
looking at the absolute peak of the market there with regard to those
Right.
three more recently built properties that I described, and they would not be directly comparable to the subject.
Fair enough, Mr. Smith. So yeah, I was just looking at two of them, two out of the three that you mentioned, and it looks like they're going past $200,000 per suite. So I'm just trying to ask if you did the math or not. But yeah, I did the math for you. So on the revenue side, was the revenue calculation on the income approach on this property based on the market or based on the actuals?
Based on the market.
Market, okay. And how about the expenses? Are they all based on the market or based on the actuals?
Yeah, it's based on the actuals adjusted for standard market parameters where necessary. So if a particular category was somewhat higher than what we would expect for a market apartment, we would have made the deduction as shown in the stabilization on, pardon me, page number 17. And so we've run through that exercise to bring it back to market.
Okay, and the estimate of payroll, do you have a backup of the $80,000?
No, I don't have a backup. So what we've done there is look at other market apartments that we represent of similar sizes and their typical payroll amounts, as well as discussions with various multifamily apartment property managers and their expectations of payroll amounts for properties of this size and vintage, etc. So it's based on market evidence.
Okay, that's all the questions I have, Madam Chair. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Harden, do you have any questions for Mr. Smith?
Well, first of all, a minor one on the parking income. In your calculation, you've included it after or before the vacancy, rather. Wouldn't it be more appropriate to include it after the vacancy if it's based on actuals?
No, so I'm glad you asked that question because it does pop up. So if you have vacancy in a unit, you also have the appropriate vacancy or demand for parking stall for that as well. It wouldn't be an exception. So you'd get less laundry usage, less usage of parking, etc. So it should have vacancy applied to it as well.
But wouldn't it include the vacancy already if it's an actual income? It would include whatever vacancy there was in the parking.
Oh, I'm sorry, I missed your question there.
Okay, if you're using actuals, which you said you were, wouldn't it the actuals include the vacancy that actually occurred? I mean, it would be a different calculation if you used potential as full as opposed to actuals as is.
I'm sorry for speaking out of turn there. So this is potentials, and it's not the actual revenue. So the actual, let's just clarify here. So if you look at the addenda materials, as I'd stated, their rents include services. So their actual gross potential suite income is something like $3.9 million. So we can't rely on that whatsoever. So the exercise I went through on page numbers 13 and 14, deriving per square foot rental rates based on new construction apartments, is then applied to the units themselves, at the bottom of page 14, so we have 100% occupancy at $1,730,686. So that is not based on the actuals, it's based on market evidence, 100% occupancy, and then we're applying vacancy to that 100% occupancy.
Okay, but if we look at your page A5, if you look at the page A5, they report a parking revenue of $12,358.
Page number which? I'm sorry?
Your A5, your addenda, page 5.
Okay, you get there. 12,358. Okay, and is that not the actual that is shown? Okay, so I'm sorry, good catch. We should add roughly $3,000 in parking income to that for that particular year. Now,
yeah, well, it's small. It's a small effect on calculation that really will have no effect on, or minimal effect on the absolute value.
yes.
The main question I have is, in your cap rates, you produce a bunch that seem to be between 5 and 6 for the most part, with 3 outliers that were higher than 6. But wouldn't that kind of suggest that cap rate should be somewhere between 5 and 6?
It for a standard market apartment, it would generally indicate that it should be somewhere between 5 and 6%. Yes. So taking that into account, we're at the high end of that range at 6% for all of the reasons that I ran through.
Okay, I have no more questions. And
Thank you, Mr. Whitbread. Any questions?
I have none, thank you.
Okay, and my question was similar to the last one Mr. Harden posed. So, and you did clarify what was going on with the kitchen. So I have no further questions. So, Mr. Valderrama, any requirement for summation on this property?
No requirement for submission, Madam Chair.
Okay.
Thank you.
Mr. Smith?
I do not. No, thank you.
Okay, thank you. So, okay, that concludes item number 1 on the agenda. So the next item we have is 490 Lindenwood Drive East.
I'm
Mr.
sorry,
Valderrama, please.
Chair,
there's a-
Yes. Yes.
I beg you please for a 7 to 10 minute break.
Oh, sure. Okay. I was going to do I was going to do one after the next property, but we can do it now if that's good with everybody. So
I realize we've only done one, but it's so cold in this room.
okay. I gotcha. Okay, so it's just about 2:21, so let's come back at 2:30, please.
Certainly.
We'll take a
be
recess.
much more efficient on the remaining 3.
Yeah. Thank you. Okay, we'll take a Thank you. I'll call the meeting back to order, and the next item on our docket this afternoon is 490 Lindenwood Drive East. Mr. Valderrama, you can proceed when you're ready.
Thank you, Madam Chair. The next property has a file number of 22-2229. It has the roll number of 10006446900. It is located at 490, that's 490 Lindenwood Drive East. We're dealing with the roll year of 2023, using reference date of April 1st, 2021. The assessed value for the property is $11,876,000. Property is classified as an institutional property with the liability of school tax or taxable school exempt. The property is a residential apartment with 1 building and 4 stories. The actual and effective year built is 2007. The number of suites are 79. There are 57 outdoor parking. The land area is 81,651 square feet. The planned area is 21,652 square feet, and a gross floor area of about 86,608 square feet. On page 3 are two photos of the subject property. And on page 4 is the income valuation summary. Again, there are 79 units with an average monthly rent per unit of $1,118.27. It has a gross potential rent of $1,060,120. The vacancy rate is 4.2%, or in terms of dollars, that is $44,525. It has an effective gross income of $1,015,595. It has an expense ratio of 46.21%, or $469,306. The net operating income is $546,289. Applying the capitalization rate of 4.6%, the capitalized income is $11,875,848, or $11,876,000 rounded. On page 5 are the rent comparables. The first one is located at 1793 Pembina Highway. The average monthly rent per unit is $1,110. The second one is located at 940A Chancellor Drive. The average monthly rent per unit is $1,186. The third one is located at 800 Dover Court Drive. Its average monthly rent per unit is $1,496. And the last one is located at 1777 Pembina Highway with an average monthly rent per unit of about $1,101. On the map of the subject property and comparable rents, on page 7 is the capitalization rates. On page 8 is the capitalization rate. And beginning page 9 to page 12 is where the 2020 income and expense information. And that's my presentation, Madam Chair.
Thank you, Mr. Smith. Any questions?
Thank you, Madam Chair. Just very briefly, I guess. So this property was built in 2007, and the city's modeling has applied a cap rate of 4.6%. The neighboring property that we just dealt with was built between 2002 and 2005 and had a cap rate of 4.9% according to the city's modeling. Just wondering how that is derived, just where the model makes such a distinction on properties that are so close in age, use, location, etc.
The model there is derived, or the model chooses or assigns capitalization rate based on age, location, size, among others. So I'm not sure how the model gives weight on each one of those or other that I did not mention. There could be some others. So I am what is on what parameter or what characteristic was given weight by the model.
Okay, that's my only question. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Whitbread, any questions?
That was my question too, Matt. Thanks.
Thank you. Mr. Harden?
No questions that hasn't been asked.
Thank you.
Yes, and I would agree. That was my question too. So, Mr. Smith, please proceed with your presentation.
Great, thank you, Madam Chair. So we are now dealing with 490 Lindenwood Drive East. This is known as Lindenwood Terrace. It is the sister property, I guess, you could say, to the one that we just did at 475 Lindenwood Drive East. It is also an assisted living seniors retirement center, owned and operated by the same organization, Winnipeg Mennonite Seniors Care Inc., as a nonprofit assisted living center. So we'll be much more efficient this time around. We look at page number 3. We have a chart giving a bit of background on the property. 2023 assessment is $11,876,000. You can see 2020 was reduced to $9,755,000. This is under appeal by us as the appellant at the municipal board. And our market value for the subject property for 2023 is $9,043,000 based on the market evidence. So further background, built in 2007, so very close in age to the property that we just dealt with, which was built between 2002 and 2005. 79 units. 51 of them being 1 beds, 28 of them being 2 beds. Same construction techniques, essentially. And we can move forward into the photos on pages 4 through 9, essentially. So some exteriors, some interiors of the common areas. So you have the dining room, the kitchen, non-standard sections of an apartment, obviously, standard market hallway, bedroom, and into the kitchen area for one of the properties. Now, again, typically, well, not typically, all of these properties are kitchenettes. As I'd mentioned in the previous one, on occasion, a few of them have a range. It's unusual. For the most part, they just have microwave, as well as the refrigerator. This particular photo shows a range, obviously, but that is not the norm. With meals being provided to the residents, they don't encourage them to be cooking in their rooms full meals. For safety reasons as well. Page 8 gives you the bathroom, further common areas on page number 9. Breakdown of the units and their construction shown on page number 10, as well as the size of the units themselves. Very similar to the last one. Actually, my text here, as I reread it, is indicating that they do have ranges for the kitchenettes that they have in this facility. But I will take you back to page 7 and the kitchen area. So if we look at the bottom of page 7, you can see the overall size of the kitchen is, well, I'll call it petite. So yes, there's a range there. It's undersized by the looks of it. Everything is on the small size in terms of the refrigerator, the range, as well as the storage capacity in the kitchen. So not a standard kitchen, and would be reflected as such in rent on the market. So skipping forward again, description of the properties of the units is shown on page number 10. The finishes are of their vintage from 2007. Nothing has been changed or updated. We're not looking at luxury apartments. We're not looking at quartz, stainless steel, etc. So when we provide the comparables that we do for new apartments, they are typically luxury apartments to the degree that we describe them. So it is necessary to discount those to reflect an appropriate rent for the subject. And as I'd stated before, we might be slightly overstating the rent for these units when we get to that. The site is across the road from the prior one shown on page 11, and location is identical in that Lindenwoods area. We move forward to the valuation. I've already described my methodology in arriving at fair market rental rates for the subject property. We're not deviating from that for this property, as the use and size, etc., are virtually the same. It should be treated in the same manner. So our averages again come out to $1.70 a square foot for average rents for 1 and 2 bedrooms, based on newly constructed market apartments that typically are at least as well located and or better, with luxury finishings, full kitchens, etc., in-suite laundries, things of that nature. So better than the subject property. So as indicated, we make a discount of 5% to the average rates that we've shown at $1.70, and this gives us our rental rate of $1.61 per square foot. The reason we do this is the units are generally undersized for the market, so they wouldn't generate the same amount of rent overall as a larger unit. So treating them on a per square foot basis is the only fair method of arriving at a fair market value. So fair market rent, rather. So page 15 summarizes this. By unit type and size, we apply that rental rate of $1.61 a square foot, giving us our 100% occupancy revenue of $1,097,000, $1,097,357, with your average rents shown on the right-hand column there, ranging between $980 and $1,436 for these units, which frankly might be, again, slightly on the high side for what we're looking at, but it's the fairest methodology that we can apply. So that being said, CMHC's stats are on page number 16. The additional income, and Mr. Harden, I've checked it this time, I reviewed it. The actual parking revenue here is $8,324, which is where the slight error on the previous property came from. My apologies for that. If you look at the INE here, it states the parking revenue is $83.24. I would welcome an adjustment to my value for $475 to increase the parking based on the actual there, which was $12,000 and some dollars. We include the parking revenue vacancy we've run through on the prior one. Same thing is applicable here, and our stabilized expenses are shown on page 18. We've gone through the same exercise. None of these figures are overstated for what it would cost to operate this particular property. I will point out that we've reduced the hydro amount both for 490 Lindenwoods here as well as 475, based on any additional electrical use for kitchen production of meals. We've made a reduction to that amount from the average to account for that. And our payroll for the property being slightly smaller is slightly smaller as well at $60,000 versus $80,000 for the prior property. Our capitalization rate discussion we've run through in detail. I'd be happy to answer any additional questions that you might have on that, but we've applied the same capitalization rate of 6% to our valuation, and our value is summarized on page 24. So as you can see, using the same methodology that we did previously, our income is slightly higher than the city's. Again, I would suggest that we're probably slightly on the high side income-wise, based on the properties being quite a bit better than the subject property in terms of build out. Our expenses are somewhat higher, but well within normalized ranges based on the actuals after going through stabilization. And our NOI comes to $542,000, $542,555. Capped at 6%, it gives us $9,043,000 as our final market value. And I'm happy to answer any questions you may have.
Thank you. Mr. Valderrama, any questions?
No new questions, Madam Chair.
Thank you. Mr. Harden, any questions?
Okay, one question I have, and it pertains to, I guess, all the properties, at least the assisted living properties. Why aren't the physical assets of the restaurant and the other common areas given any value?
They're not given any value as they are. We're looking at restaurant components. We're looking at, again, a business item that should be stripped from the operation of the building, right?
Well, surely the restaurant, at least the restaurant, could be operated as an independent restaurant, could it not?
Well, we're speculating here on uses that wouldn't fall within the zoning category for the property, and then attributing value to something that it doesn't have, right? So no, I wouldn't agree with that.
Okay, that's the question that I have. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Whitbread.
Nothing, thank you.
I just have one, Mr. Smith. There's fewer suites in this building, and correct me if I'm wrong, I did go back and look, and the charts are slightly different, but it appears that the suites in this property are slightly larger. Would that not affect the cap rate on this property compared to the first one?
No, it wouldn't affect the cap rate. They are still on the smaller side with regard to normal market size apartments overall. So it's not that they're either at market size or overly large, where you might see a change in capitalization rate if they were able to generate more revenue. But again, that wouldn't be the case here. So no, there's no adjustment certainly based on the size of the units. The age of them is essentially exactly the same. The build out is virtually identical. So we don't.
Would a building with this? Oh, sorry to interrupt you. Sorry, finish. Go ahead.
We really don't see them as being different. Yes, there's less units here, but we've reached a level of investment at $9 or $10 million here that you're a significant player in the marketplace. That there's no distinction between who the competitors are out there between 80 suites and 135 suites, which wouldn't then impact the cap rate either.
Okay, thank you. Mr. Valderrama, any need for summation on this property?
No need for summation, Madam Chair.
And Mr. Smith, any need?
No, thank you.
Okay, thank you. So that concludes 490 Lindenwood Drive East. We will proceed now to 495 Lindenwood Drive East. Mr. Valderrama, please proceed when you're ready.
Thank you, Madam Chair. The next property has a file number of 22-2228. It has the roll number of 10006359-800. The property is located at 495 Lindenwood Drive East. We're dealing with the roll year of 2023. Using reference date of April 1st, 2021, the assessed value for the property is $12,208,000. It is classified as a 20 residential 2 with a liability of taxable. The property is a residential apartment with 1 building and 3 stories. Its actual and effective year built is 2003. It has 52 suites with 52 parking indoor and outdoor parking of 10. The land area for the property is $119,691. The plan area is $23,750. Square feet. The gross floor area is 71,250 square feet. And on page 3, I do have 2 photos of the subject property. Page 4 is the income valuation summary. Again, there are 52 units with an average monthly rent per unit of $1,586.98. The gross potential rent for the property is $990,276. The vacancy rate is 4.2% or $41,592. The effective gross income is $948,684. So is 40.16% or $380,991. The net operating income is $567,693. Applying the capitalization rate of 4.65%, the capitalized income is $12,208,452 or $12,208,000 rounded. The next page, page 5, are some rent comparables. The first one is located at 25 Ancaster Gate. Its average monthly rent per unit is $1,537. The second one is located at 2815 Pembina Highway. The average monthly rent per unit is $1,510. The third one is located at 522 River Avenue. The average monthly rent per unit is $1,600. And the last one is located at 70 Bison Drive. The average monthly rent per unit is $1,695. Page 6 is the map of the subject property and comparable rents. Page 7 is the capitalization rates. On page 8 is the capitalization rate evidence. And beginning of page 9 to page 12 is the 2020 income and expense mailer or information for the subject property. That's my presentation, Madam Chair.
Thank you very much. Mr. Smith, any questions?
Just to, I guess, what would the 20th to 80th percentile cap rate is shown on page number 7 there is 4.8 at the low end. What would 0 to 100 percentile be? Like, what would the lowest cap rate be that the city uses in their valuations?
I don't have the information ready on that one, Madam Chair, so I couldn't answer the question.
Fair enough. But the subject property is sitting at 4.65%. So that would be towards the very bottom end of the range that the city applies, correct?
Correct.
Okay. And when I look at the rental comparables on page number 5, these are all luxury apartments, correct? That are all built 2013 through 2019. So they're significantly newer than the subject?
The built, yes, they are newer than the subject property.
Okay, correct. So I'll take one for instance. So comparable number 3, 522 River. This is Conrad House, built by the Lount Corporation. They're a very long-term multifamily developer and owner. This is one of their newest properties that they've done. They did not build anything for quite a number of years until they built this one here, 522 River. It's located in Osborne Village, across from the Safeway in Osborne Village on River Avenue. Has an exterior limestone finish, so not siding or anything of that nature, quite high end. It's concrete construction. They state it's luxury apartments allow large suites. It has underground heated parking, and they go through a description of all of the various finishes, which are all high end. That would be superior to the subject, would it not?
Without inspecting the property, I wouldn't be able to comment on that one, Madam Chair.
Okay, I won't run through the others, but they're to varying degrees similar in nature and stated to be luxury apartments. I guess that is my only comment. Thank you.
Okay, Mr. Harden, any questions?
None of the assessor.
No. Mr. Whitbread, any questions?
Thank you.
No, and I have no questions. So, Mr. Smith, please proceed with your presentation.
Great, thank you, Madam Chair. So 495 Lindenwood Estates. So we are still dealing with the same sponsor slash developer owner, that being Winnipeg Mennonite Seniors Care Inc. In this case, the actual designated owner is stated as Lindenwood Estates Inc., which is, of course, Winnipeg Mennonite Seniors Care. It is a non-profit in this case, and the following building that we'll be dealing with at 500 Lindenwoods. This is a non-profit life lease retirement apartment. So we are dealing with a situation where each of the residents has a life lease in place. They have the legal right to remain in residence in their unit till obviously the expiry of their life, or until they move on to further levels of care at their choosing. So that significantly complicates the valuation with regard to arriving at a fair capitalization rate, with the exercise being what would an astute investor pay for such a property with such a limitation on it as well. So let's move into the property itself. Page number 3 gives you background. We have a 2023 assessment of $12,208,000. You can see our 2020 assessment was reduced at the Board of Revision marginally to $11,121,000. This is under appeal at the municipal boards by ourselves as the appellant on behalf of the owner. And we await scheduling of that at this time. So the valuation that we have for the subject property based on market evidence is $9,119,000 for the 2023 assessment. So significant gulf between the assessed value and what we believe a fair market value based on reasonable assumptions and conservative assumptions would develop. So let's look at page 3 again. Built in 2003, we have a total of 52 units. 8 of them 1-beds, 44 of them 2-bedroom units. The additional areas for the subject property are an exercise and library room, a large common room with a small kitchen for that. Doesn't produce meals. It's simply there for meetings that are held there. And then there is an additional games room as well. We have photos of some of those in the photos shown. So beginning on page number 4, we have photographs. So to the exterior, we move inside, one of the common area, one of the library. And then we get into the units, as you can see, on 6 and 7. So their finishes are of their vintage. Again, it's not luxury accommodation, but it is certainly somewhat bigger than the units in the assisted living center. We do have full kitchens in these units, as you can see on page number 8. And this particular facility does have underground parking as shown on page number 9. So that's the building itself. The breakout of the building is shown on page number 10. Total of 52 units. Already gone through the discussion. The finishes, again, are of the 2003 vintage, and they're not intended to be luxury apartments. They're fairly straightforward, as you can see. Parking for the property, obviously 1 stall per unit in underground parking, and then a small additional area of above ground parking for the property as well. The site is shown on page 11, and the location is identical to where we were before. So that is the background. We move forward to my page number 13. We can look very quickly here at definition of market value. We have the normal definition at the top of the page, that being most probable price which a property should bring in a competitive and open market as of the specified date, under all conditions requisite to a fair sale. The buyer and seller each acting prudently and knowledgeably and assuming the price is not affected by undue stimulus. So that would mean such things as property being on the open market for sale, being publicized, owner being represented, etc. No undue motivations on either party, and no special financing, no relations between parties, no government sales, nothing of that nature. For the subject property, further to that, I'll state again, fee simple estate ownership, which is the greatest ownership that you can have in Canada, defined by Appraisal Institute of Canada, is the greatest estate that an owner other than the Crown can have in land, held in perpetuity, carrying with it the right to sell, lease, or give it away, subject only to restrictions held by the Crown. Those being taxation, expropriation, police power, and escheat. Now, this is complicated by the fact for the subject property that we have life leases in place. So we have essentially leasehold estates. Our exercise is to value the property as fee simple, but that doesn't negate the fact that you have 52 life lease owners in place that have the right to occupy their unit until the end of their life under the terms that they've signed their lease on. So looking at again at page 13, leasehold estate is termed by the Appraisal Institute of Canada, defined as rather an interest in land for a definite period of time, a week, a year, 100 years, or even more. Lessor or landlord grants the leasehold estate to a lessee or tenant, usually for some of money. Lessee has the right to exclusive possession of the property for the term of lease. So that is the situation that we find ourselves here in. And it's not for a short period of time, where if an investor were to look at the purchase of the property, they could anticipate receiving it back free and clear of any of that within, call it, 2 to 5 years with normal lease terms in commercial market. That's not the case here. People have the right to occupy those units under the terms of their lease until the end of their life or until they move on. So that's a significantly complicating factor in the valuation with regard to application of a cap rate. Let's move on from that to the valuation. As stated, our units are somewhat larger than those in the assisted living. We don't actually have the sizes of these units. They weren't broken out for us as such that I had the information on. So what we're doing is looking at the same information with regard to brand new apartments, luxury apartments essentially, and making a fair application of that information to the subject property, where property was built in 2003, isn't a luxury apartment, but is well located and sizable units, finishes of that vintage. So our comps are shown on page 14 and 15. They remain the same as those we used in the earlier properties. You can see that the rental rate ranges are shown there for you. 1 beds, 2 beds as broken out. And the description of each property. So I can't again emphasize enough that each of these properties is superior to the subject in terms of being both more recently constructed as well as built with luxury finishes, which will drive higher rental rate ranges as well as modern suite layouts, etc. So let's look at our averages here. We have an average rent of $13.68 for the 1 beds and $17.67 for the 2 beds, with the ranges being $11.75 to $16.55 for 1 beds and $13.98 to $28.60 for the 2 bedroom units, which certainly drives a higher average rent for the 2 beds. That's our examination of the market. Once we run through all of that and we look at the rent that the city has applied to the subject property, we are in agreement with their gross rental income that they've applied. The reason I've run through all that is to show you that we have done the background work and haven't just chosen their number without doing a detailed analysis. So we are in agreement on the gross rent applied. In addition to that, we've added the parking revenue that the property states of $4,800. And we move on to the expense side, 4.2% vacancy, consistent with the market. And our expense allowance is shown on page number 17. So we run through each of the categories here, and we've gone through the stabilization exercise again. In the same way, reduced property management to relatively standard 5% of effective gross income. We made adjustments to the repair and maintenance to make it $1,500 per suite, which is certainly fair for the subject property, relative market norm. There's obviously lower and higher amounts, but that is certainly fair for the subject. You can see that the R&M is in line with that in the last year, lower in the previous one, and significantly higher in the one previous to that. So $1,500 is certainly applicable. And we have made adjustments again where necessary, including adding an appropriate payroll amount for a property of this size. So our expense allowance is based on the stabilized 2021 expenses for the property. There are no services provided to these residents, so there is no business component to strip out of this property. Our capitalization rate information is all identical to the previous properties that we looked at here, so I'm not going to run through that information again, other than to state our typical range that we're seeing as 5.25% to 5.75% roughly in our market evidence, with the brokerages stating 5 to 6% as a typical range for these low-rise apartments. Now, to that, you need to add the fact that this isn't a standard market apartment. We do have a number of complicating factors. We have additional common areas that require repair and maintenance, which does generally add a little bit of expense to the operation of a property. So that would be over and above a standard market apartment. And we also have the situation where we have life lease life leases in place for each of these units. So you have essentially 52 individual interests in the property outside of the holding company of Lindenwood Estates Inc., the nonprofit entity. And each of those lessees has the right to remain in place under the terms that they sign. So our exercise is, what would an astute investor pay for that property on the assumption that they're buying it as a market apartment that isn't a market apartment, that they will receive back gradually as people leave their units for whatever reason. Again, they would pay, typically they would pay a premium, or they would pay, they would attribute greater risk to purchase of that property versus an identical property next door that did not have that particular complication. So they would add that risk factor to their capitalization rate that they apply in their valuation of a property such as this. So the capitalization rate that we have applied to the subject property based on that is 5.75%. So we're slightly less than the assisted living centers that we've just examined. Reason for that is, yes, we do have the life lease complications. We also have units that are significantly bigger as well. They're more in line with standard market apartments, maybe marginally bigger. So we have made an adjustment for that. So the risk would be certainly somewhat less than buying an assisted living center. So capitalization rate that we've applied is 5.75%. We look at page 23, this summarizes our valuation. Again, the actual expenses are not overstated. It wouldn't cost a normal market apartment owner less to operate the facility than it does as it's currently run. We've made all adjustments in order to bring it back to market expenses where necessary, so we're not overstating the expenses. And our final NOI is $524,320, capped at 5.75%, gives us $9,119,000. And that is my presentation. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Valderrama. Do you have any questions?
No new questions, Madam Chair.
Thank you. Mr. Whitbread, any questions?
Yes. A life lease. Does a tenant have to pay an amount of money up front to buy that life lease in addition to their monthly lease commitments?
They pay an upfront fee to, as you say, to the organization for that life lease. Yes, so it's not a fee that they pay and then don't receive back. They put up money at the beginning of their term, essentially, that they then receive back when they exit the property at the end of their term there.
And if they didn't exit, if they deceased, that would go to their estate.
That's correct.
Okay.
Yes.
So, I don't know if you're portraying any confidentiality or not, but what amount of money would they pay to buy that lease?
I'm afraid I don't have that information. And again, I guess in terms of valuing the property, it's kind of our exercise is, what would this be? What would a fair value for this property be as a market apartment, given the immovable factors of it being a life lease or an assisted living center that would come into play if somebody were buying that as an astute investor. So I don't.
I understand that. But
Yeah.
It's not assisted living.
No.
And it's a luxury based on $235,000 roughly per suite.
Well, again,
that was the city's value.
yes.
So just following that, it is higher than what we looked at. in the other three properties. So there's a sum of money sitting there times 52. And is that factored into income in any way during the course of a year?
Well, so we're looking at what appropriate rent would be for the subject property, free and clear of any of those factors, right? As an apartment. So I do understand your question. I would say that and this comes up every time that I do a life lease, so it is an important. Pardon me? Have we? Okay, I couldn't remember. I do so many that it's difficult to remember who I've spoken to it about. But so on entering a life lease property, there is, whether it's a non-profit or for-profit or what have you, most of them are non-profit. There is an amount of money that lessee has to put in to the operating company in order to occupy that building. It can vary according to the means of the lessee that's going into residence, and that amount of money is used in the operation of the facility, essentially, right? It also can bring down the amount that they pay for their unit on a monthly basis. Of course, depending on what they pay in as well. There's various permutations as to how they do that. But again, that's not what we're valuing.
But Trevor, let me get more directly to my point then. Because if the buy-in is $100,000 per unit, that means there's $5,200,000 sitting in a bank account somewhere. It has to. And there's interest being earned on that at some 1 or 2 or 3%. I don't see it reflected here in the mailers, in the income statements, or in any of your statements. Am I missing a point here?
Well, it's certainly not $100,000 that they're putting in.
It could be 50,000. It could be 2.6 million.
Yes. Again, I do understand your point, and yes, there is that money there, and the monies that aren't being used to run the facility, because that money. Such a complicated thing. So when they build it, obviously they need the money to construct these facilities. And part of that, not the entire thing, but part of that is the monies that lessees put in, which goes towards construction of the facility. So some of that money is sunk into the building for construction. They also obviously get mortgages for the construction as well, and some of the money remains left over, which then can be used to further operate the building, but as well, as you state, be put in the bank and earn revenue. So if there's 52 units and they each put in $100,000, that doesn't mean that there's $5.2 million earning revenue for them every year, right? It's part of it's been used to construct the facility. Some of it's used in operations, ongoing as people come and go. It goes in and out. So you don't necessarily have a set significant chunk sitting there earning revenue. There will be some. I don't dispute that at all, but I don't know that it's as big a factor as people necessarily think it may be.
Or as my example would indicate. So what I hear you saying then is an astute operator, the guys operating the business, wouldn't be covering their operating expenses necessarily with the rent that they put in place for this facility, even though the financial statements seem to prove that otherwise. They seem to have a net operating income based on operations. You're saying they need that additional $5.2 million to help with that, in addition to building the structure itself at the outset?
Well, so the developer, nonprofit developer, that will have gone through the exercise of constructing these, the business model is such that, yes, the lessees, the life lease tenants, do contribute monies that go towards construction of that property, and then ongoing operation of it, as well as reduction of their individual rents, depending if they're on their means in some circumstances. But so it's just not a normal situation. So what we're faced with is what would what would the situation be if that property were on the market, which it never will be. It's a theoretical exercise, right? So those tenants have put that money in, they get it back at the end of their term. So if you're a purchaser of that property on the market, if it were to come to market, you can't, that's not money that's then available to you that will be filling your coffers, essentially, right?
It's a murky
Right.
explanation. I'm not being critical.
It is.
It's a murky explanation, but I'll leave it for now, Madam Chair. If you want to
Okay, thank you. Okay, Mr. Harden, any questions?
No questions, thank you.
And I have no questions. So that concludes this item. Any need for summation, Mr. Valderrama?
No need for summation, Madam Chair.
And Mr. Smith?
I do not, thank you.
Thank you. Okay, so we'll move on to 500 Lindenwood Drive East. And just get everybody pull it up here. And Mr. Valderrama, please proceed when you're ready.
Thank you, Madam Chair. The next property has a file number of 22-2231. It has a roll number of 10-006-446800. The property is located at 500 Lindenwood Drive East. We're dealing with the roll year of 2023. Using reference date of April 1st, 2021, the assessed value is $13,490,000. The classification for this property is residential 2 with a liability of taxable. The property is a residential apartment with 1 building, 4 stories, an actual and effective year built of 2010. There are 48 suites with 48 indoor parking and 18 outdoor parking stalls. The property has a land area of 59,608 square feet. Excuse me. A planned area of 19,268 square feet and a gross floor area of 77,072 square feet. On page 3 are a couple of aerial photos of the subject property. And on page 4 is the income valuation summary. Again, there are 48 total units with an average monthly rent per unit of $1,814.47. The gross potential rent is $1,045,135. The vacancy rate is 4.2%. In terms of dollars, that is $43,896. It has an effective gross income of $1,001,239. It has an expense ratio of 39.37%, or in terms of dollars, that is $394,188. The net operating income is $607,051. Applying the capitalization rate of 4.5%, the capitalized income is $13,490,022, or $13,490,000 rounded. On page 5 are some rent comparables. The first one is located at 522 River Avenue. The average monthly rent per unit is $1,611. The second one is located at 570 Stradbrook Avenue. The average monthly rent per unit is $1,796. The third one is located at 70 Bison Drive. The average monthly rent per unit is $1,695. And the last one is located at 100 Paget Street. The average monthly rent per unit is $1,781. And the next page is the map of the subject property and the comparable rents. Page 7 is the capitalization rates. On page 8 is the capitalization rate evidence. Pages 9 to 12 is the 2020 income and expense information. And that's my presentation, Madam Chair.
Thank you very much. Mr. Smith, any questions?
Yes, just quickly, and just because it's it's come up, I'll look at the rental comparables on page 5. So the subject property has additional common area that would drive the gross floor area per unit up in comparison to the comparable properties. Is that fair to say?
It's per unit, so yeah, I would say
Or I can
it
phrase
includes
that another way.
everything. Yeah, it's
So
gross
with
floor area.
Gross floor area. So if the gross floor area included non-standard additional areas, then that would drive a higher gross floor area per unit, I guess, right?
Yeah, same goes with the other rent comparables.
Okay. So then just to look at the rent comparables versus the subject. So run through these very quickly. So the first one we've already described, Conrad House at 522 River, underground parking, luxury apartments. We have an exterior finish of limestone, large suites, etc. Second one, 570 Stradbrook, built in 2018, underground parking, luxury apartments, stainless kitchen, appliances, quartz countertops, ensuite laundry, etc. Number 3, which I've represented, 70 Bison Drive, also luxury apartments. Number 4, 100 Paget, built in 2011, Grand Lion Terrace, just off of Sterling Lion in southwest Winnipeg there. Crystal Properties, underground parking, in-suite laundry, luxury finishes. These would all be superior to the subject property in terms of general rental rate on the market, would they not?
Without inspecting both the subject property and the comparable rents or the comparable properties, I wouldn't be able to comment on the superiority or inferiority of these comparable properties or comparable rents. And all that's sticking out is that the subject property only has 2-bedroom units. So that's just it.
Yeah, that's certainly fair. So when I look at the average monthly rent here, so the rent applied to the subject by the model is $1,814 per month, and each of the comps is well under that: $1,611, $1,796, $1,695, $1,781. Would that not indicate the model is a bit on the high side?
On the high side, due to the fact that it has no 1-bedroom or 0 bachelor units, that's pulling down the average.
Okay, those are all of my questions. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Mr. Harden.
Yeah, I'm just wondering, that's the fact it's all 2-bedroom is the reason why the rent is $300 a month more than the previous property? Is that correct?
The previous property is assessed, the model assigned it. However, if we look at the rent comparables we have on this, on page 5 for this subject property that we have, it's higher definitely compared to the rent comparables that I have, the 4 rent comparables, mainly because the rent comparables have 1-bedroom units that pull down their averages. of course, it's logical to conclude that one-bedroom units have lower rents, and if we add it or average it with two-bedroom units, which are higher, it will somehow pull down the average monthly rent per unit.
Okay. All right. Thank you for that.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you. Mr. Whitbread, any questions?
I have none, thank you.
Thank you.
And I have no questions. So, Mr. Smith, please proceed with your presentation.
Thank you.
Thank you, Madam Chair. So 500 Lindenwood Drive East, again, nonprofit life lease seniors facility. This is the same ownership, Winnipeg Mennonite Seniors Care. The designated ownership is Lindenwood Villa Inc., but it is, of course, Winnipeg Mennonite Seniors Care behind that entity that owns and operates it. And it is, of course, a life lease facility, so exactly the same as the last one, slightly newer, this one being built in 2010 versus the previous one being built in 2003. So we're looking at a 7-year age difference in terms of the property. In terms of the number of suites, we have 48 suites here, so very close to the previous property at 52 units. The breakout, as stated by Mr. Valderrama here, is all two-bedroom units, so 48 two-bedroom units. The prior one did have some one-bedroom units, but when you look at it, you're looking at about 20% one-bedroom units versus with 80% two-bedroom units on the previous one. So it heavily skews towards two-bedroom units as well. Not entirely, but it's largely two-bedroom units too. So page number 3 gives you background. 13,490,000 is our 2023 assessment. 2020 assessment reduced at the Board of Revision to 11,569,000, which is under appeal to the Municipal Board by ourselves as the appellant. Our value for property for 2023 is 8,490,000 based on our valuation here today. The property built in 2010, so it is marginally newer than the previous property, but is essentially largely the same in all other respects. Photos begin on page 4, a couple of the exterior. Then you have your interiors with the units being shown as well. Galley kitchen as shown up top. Bathroom, obviously wheelchair accessible there. And another shot of the interiors on page number 7. So one thing I will just, I don't know that dispute is the word, but to clarify is that yes, these are not low-end units located in a less financially desirable area of the city or something of that nature. I'm not certainly by no means stating that when I describe them, but they are not equivalent to the modern newly built luxury apartments that both the city has compared them to and that I have additionally compared them to, but reduced the rental rate applied to the property. So I think that does need to be emphasized. Apples to apples, the finishes and layouts, etc. of the others are significantly nicer and would draw greater rent on the open marketplace. Description of the units themselves is shown on page 8. I've shown you the photos, so we know what we're looking at. Location we're well aware of, and we have the same leasehold interest issue with the life leases being in place on each and every unit. in this facility. Let's move forward to the valuation itself. I have the same valuation methodology as before. I've applied, or rather given you indications of what newly built luxury apartments, not the top end of luxury apartments, but the ones that are most comparable to the subject might generate, all of these being superior to the subject. You can see the average rental rate ranges and the averages that those generate on page 13. And what we've done, and Val may agree or disagree with me on this, the property is essentially identical to the one that we've just dealt with at 495 Lindenwood Drive East. There's no substantive difference between them. They each have underground parking, one stall per unit. They're similar sized units by any stretch, and we're not looking at low end build out, but we're not looking at luxury build out. So they should essentially be valued the same. Is there a marginal difference between there being some one beds and the other 8 one beds versus this one having all 2 beds? Maybe, but when we look at the average rental rate that we've applied of $15.87 per unit, and we look at the rental rate ranges that we're showing in our comps, I think the comparison is very valid. So if you look at our comps, let's look at the 2-bedroom unit. So 300 Assiniboine, beautiful building, tower on Assiniboine downtown, overlooking Assiniboine River, relatively large units. They're getting $15.58 to $28.60 for those units. Now, subject, your 2860s would be your Riverview ones that would be larger and higher up in the building. So the subject is a 3-story building in Lindenwoods. It's not going to be at the upper levels there. 800 Dovercourt, similarly close by, 1555 to 1750, 15. You can see the rent range there. Certainly more closer to the subject. Certainly backs up 1587 a suite. La Maison a little bit higher. Bison Point somewhat higher again. Again, I would point out these are nicer properties than the subject in terms of build out. 429 Beaver Hill, built in 2019, so brand new. We're looking at lounges, gyms, quartz countertops, luxury kitchen and bathrooms, etc. They're higher at 1800, and we have 865 Panet between 1398 and 1448, built in 2020. Not as high end as some of the others here, and we have ensuite laundry, lounge, dog run, playground, balconies, but they're not built out with luxury kitchens and bathrooms. So your range there, 1398 to 1448. 1587 per suite, which is what the city applied to 495 Lindenwood Drive East, which we were in agreement with, is certainly applicable to the subject property as well. So we have applied the same rental rate, well supported by the market evidence. CMHC's information is there for you. Our vacancy rate matches the city's expense allowance. Again, we've gone through the 3-year stabilization exercise. You can ask me questions on that if you wish. We've made adjustments where appropriate. And you can see the resulting overall expense allowance. Our capitalization rate discussion, I've just gone through that with the prior property as well as the previous ones. so I won't run through it again. Our range overall is 5 to 6% typically. Low rise A's, according to CB Richard Ellis, being in the range of 5.25% to 5.75%. So the low-rise A's would be certainly your superior properties in that particular market segment. I've described the issues with life leases, and we are again applying a cap rate of 5.75%, both supported by our market evidence as well as the main market participants in national brokerages. And you can see the summary of our valuation on page number 21. So again, we're using $1,587 per suite, giving us our rental income, to which we add the parking revenue that they generate. The expenses are under the cities by a slight amount, and our NOI comes to $488,177. Capitalized at 5.75% gives us $8,490,000. If we look at the city's estimated rent of $1,814 per month, the comparables that the city has provided are all superior. They all indicate lower rental rates than that applied to the subject property. And if we look at the comparables that I've provided, we have the very top end indicating that might top end of our comps indicating that. So properties overlooking the Assiniboine in a beautiful building, running up to 2860 with every amenity imaginable. We have the top end of Bison Drive, also slightly higher, and we have 429 Beaver Hill at $1,800 a month with luxury build outs of the unit. So I think the rate that we've applied is certainly fair based on the evidence that we're able to provide to you here. So we're recommending a market value of $8,490,000. And just to look at the in-place revenue, which again shouldn't be relied on in any sense. When we look at their income and expense statement, it states gross potential suite income at 100% occupancy at $448,513. Now, in comparison to our rental income based on market at $914,000, there's a gulf there, obviously. That is where your life lease situation comes into play, which complicates it dramatically. So that is my presentation, and I'm happy to answer questions.
Thank you. Mr. Valderrama, any questions?
No new questions, Madam Chair.
Mr. Whitbread, any questions?
I have none, thank you.
Mr. Harden, any questions?
No questions.
And I have no questions, thank you. So we'll move on to the next item on the docket, which is 1918 Portage Avenue. And Mr. Valderrama, I believe the applicant has something to say after you've read this onto the roll. So let's proceed with that, and then we'll hear from the applicant. Thank you.
Madam Chair, in the interest of time, would you want me to read through just page 1? Or
yes, thank you.
Okay. Thank you. The next property has a file number of 22-3691. It has a roll number of 0704045500. It is located at 1918 Portage Avenue. We're dealing with the roll year of 2023. Using reference date of April 1st, 2021, the assessed value is $1,779,000. It is classified as a residential 2 with the liability of taxable. The property is a residential apartment with 1 building, 3 stories, an actual year built of 1953, and an effective year built of 1974. It has 17 suites with 6 outdoor parking. It has a land area of 9,152 square feet, a planned area of 3,712 square feet, and a gross floor area of 11,136 square feet. And that's the page 1 of my presentation, Madam Chair.
Thank you very much. Mr. Smith, I understand you had were looking to perhaps confirm this property?
That is correct, Madam Chair.
Okay, thank you. So we will move on from 1918 Portage Avenue to 1924 Portage Avenue, please. And Mr. Valderrama, when you're ready, the same process as the last property. Thank you.
Thank you, Madam Chair. The next property has a file number of 22-3693. It has a roll number of 0704045300. It is located at 1924 Portage Avenue. We're dealing with the roll year of 2023 with a reference date of April 1st, 2021. The assessed value is $1,947,000. It is classified as a residential 2 with a liability of taxable. The property is a residential apartment with 1 building, 3 stories, an actual year built of 1953, and an effective year built of 1974. It has 17 suites with 6 outdoor parking. It has a land area of 9,091 square feet, a planned area of 3,712 square feet, and a gross floor area of 11,136 square feet. That's my page 1 of my brief, Madam Chair.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Smith.
Same process as the last one. We're simply seeking confirmation of the assessment.
Okay, thank you very much. We will move on now then to the final item on the docket today, which is 1945 Portage Avenue. Mr. Valderrama, when you're ready.
Thank you, Madam Chair. And the last property has a file number of 22-3692. It has a roll number of 0704046410. It is located at 1945 Portage Avenue. We're dealing with the roll year of 2023. Using reference date of April 1st, 2021, the assessed value is $1,947,000. It is classified as a residential 2 with a liability of taxable. The property is a residential apartment with 1 building, 3 stories. It has an actual year built of 1953, an effective year built of 1974. It has 17 suites with 6 outdoor parking, a land area of 10,743 square feet, a planned area of 3,712 square feet, and a gross floor area of 11,136 square feet. And that's the page 1 of my brief, Madam Chair. Thank you.
Thank you. And Mr. Smith?
We're simply looking to confirm the assessment.
Okay, thank you for that again. And I just want to ask my 2 board members, did you have any questions related to any of those confirmations?
No questions.
No questions.
Okay, and I had no questions as well. So thank you all very much, everyone. We've heard all the items scheduled on the docket today, and this hearing is now adjourned. Thank you.
Thank you. Have a good day, everyone.
Thank you.